We're pretty much at the limit of borrowing at the moment.
You are supposed to be the servants of the people. The people are supposed to be your bosses. And to me, the people doesn't even realize that.
Good evening. My name is Ralph from St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
I'm going to say something that's controversial. CARICOM has gotten in its own way.
I want to be very clear that there is a dangerous tendency in our countries.
This program is talk about the facts. We must bring the facts.
Time to face the facts.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this edition of Time to Face the Facts. You are going to be absolutely thrilled with this program because we have our youth who are going to be sharing with us, and they will tell us exactly what they see now and what they would like to see in the future. But they will go beyond that because they will also tell us what they plan to do and how they plan to participate, or what they are already doing to shape this future that we are always hearing about. So don't go away, get your drink, get whatever you need to do, and come right back and stay with us for this edition of Time to Face the Facts.
Stop the spread of germs that can make you and others sick. Cover your nose and mouth with a tissue when you cough or sneeze. If you don't have a tissue, use your elbow. Wash hands often, especially after coughing or sneezing into a tissue.
Prevent cold and flu by washing your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. That's the time it takes to remove most germs. No soap and water? No worries when you've got alcohol-based hand sanitizer.
Welcome back, viewers, to this edition of Time to Face the Facts. I'm your host, Beverly Sinclair. I hope you're all settled in and ready to listen to these young people and what they have to share with us. But before we get into the discussion in that way, I'm going to ask them just to tell you a little bit about themselves, what they've been up to, and what we can expect from them. And we will start with one of our young ladies. Her name is Dominique. Dominique, introduce yourselves to the audience, yourself to the audience.
Good afternoon. My name is Dominique Morales. I'm from Belize. I'm a writer and a youth advocate, and I specialize in youth development. So I'm attending the UA and pursuing my bachelor's degree in sociology.
Okay, thank you very much, Dominique. We move on to Nixon.
Hi, good afternoon to our viewing audience, and thank you very much, Beverly, for this opportunity to be on this program. My name is Nixon Barry. I am a Grenadian living in St. Lucia, and I have had a number of years professional experience as a youth development practitioner. I'm also an environmentalist by, I wouldn't say by profession, but by my passion. To ensure that we preserve our planet, etc. So it's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much, Nixon. I look forward to the discussion myself. And our youngest panelist, Jada.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jada Glean. I am 17 years old. I recently completed my CSEC examinations. I'm very much passionate about politics, especially when it has to do with our youth. So I'm obviously very much excited for this discussion because these are things that I discuss on a day-to-day basis with my friends. So I'm very much excited for this.
Thank you very much, Jada. And finally, Wesley.
Pleasant afternoon to all of the panelists, Ms. Sinclair, and the viewing audience. My name is Wesley Simon. I'm a Grenadian. My latest educational achievement was completing my associate's degree at the T. Marshall Community College. I am currently employed, and I have a keen interest in politics as well as law, and I'm hoping to pursue my LLB soon. And I'm also looking forward to discussions on this program here today.
Well, one thing I can say is that I am absolutely sure that you will pursue and be very successful in obtaining that degree. I know you are all set for it. Now, I want to just hear from you as we talk about education. You know, some of you have mentioned your studies, the field that you are interested in. I want to start with Jada as the person who has just completed her CSEC exams and is very much interested in politics. Jada, what has school done for you? Your course of study, the subjects you take, how has that prepared you for what you want to do in the future?
So, having recently completed my exams, I've split up my subjects in a way that I kind of have a feel in everything because I wasn't too sure. I'm confident and passionate about politics, but I wasn't too sure.
I believe Jada has a little bit of internet trouble there, or is it me? Sometimes I'm really not sure if it's my internet or if it's the guest internet. We all have internet troubles. So in the meantime, until Jada gets back, maybe Nixon, you can walk us through the education process. What do we teach in schools, at universities? Are we on the proper page? Since we're in the virtual era, and that's the kind of language we use now. Are we on the proper page with our young people who are entering schools at various levels, who are studying, who are excited? Are we on the right track with what we're teaching them, Nixon? What do you think?
I think the discussion about the education system and the curriculum, it's not new. It has been there for quite a long time. There's often the question whether or not the system prepares a student or a young person for the field of work or in order to make contributions to society. We have seen some changes, minor changes over the years, but I think that the changes that we've seen, it's not on par with how quickly our world is evolving. So I think we are evolving way faster than the system is changing. You still have a situation today where we are lacking certain innovative subjects and technology and so forth in the classroom, and we know it's all over us. COVID-19 has definitely opened the door, whether it's by force, which I believe it was. I certainly believe it was by force that COVID-19 came, and we've had to make some drastic changes within the education system, changes that should have been happening a long time ago. We should have been phasing this thing in, and now we've had to just come and drop it on our young people. There is still a lot of work to be done in the curriculum. We still have to introduce things like entrepreneurship and so forth within our school system, because gone are the days when you prepare a student to graduate and take a job in the public sector and the private sector. We need to be training our children and our young people to be creating jobs. And I think this is where we have to go. Yes, there are people who want to become public servants and who want to fall into the system. Dominic wants to do youth development. So there will still be those jobs, but I think we have to be more creative. Some work have been done, but I believe there's much more that's needed.
And I may ask you to expand a little bit on that creativity that you would like to see within the curriculum and in the education sector. I know that the subjects and how they are presented have certainly changed a lot since I did CXC, you know, so, so I want to hear more about that from you. Jada, are you back with us now?
I am back, hopefully for good this time.
Yes, I hope so too. Yes, you wanted to, well, I had asked you about the course of study in school. Is it preparing you for what you want to do when you envision yourself and your activities going forward?
Personally, I feel like at school, we tend to spread things too thin, like we spread out, because I myself ended up doing a lot of subjects in that sense, because I couldn't really decide where it is I wanted to go at first. So we do all this academics, and some students are leaving school without any clue of what they wanted to do. They have all this knowledge, as we put it, but we still have no clue where we want to settle down. In school presently, I always say there's some improvements to be made with our education system. We are not encouraged or so to find like our passion. It's more learning constantly, acquiring all this knowledge, and that's just it. We're not able to put it into practice or do the practical. It's more focused on theory rather than practical. So that's just the case for me based on experience.
Yes, and Wesley, you are interested in studying for the legal fraternity. We have a lot of lawyers in the Caribbean, plenty, especially like in Grenada, where you are based. I know we probably have about 200 lawyers in Grenada, and it's similar everywhere. Now, what attracts you to this profession, and how did your experience in education interest you to think about becoming a lawyer?
Well, for me, that interest, it really came when I actually started my law course back in TAMCC. At first, it became my favorite subject very quickly, because I realized I had a passion for it and a natural ability at it, and being able to. I remember for the first question my lecturer had asked, he said, "Why are y'all doing law? Why are the students doing law?" And a lot of my past classmates, they said, well, they wanted to be a lawyer. They wanted to be a lawyer. Me, I didn't want to be a lawyer at the time. For me, I just wanted to be able to be equipped with the relevant knowledge, right? So that those who are in authority or those who are in certain positions of influence or the officers of those relevant bodies, they won't be able to come and misuse or abuse their powers onto those who are ignorant in those fields. And for me, as I continue with it, I realized that, you know what, I do like to help out with people, and just being able to be a lawyer and when I understand and being equipped with the knowledge to help, that's what really got me attracted to that field, really.
Now, Dominique, you are interested in youth development. How did you select subjects in school or a course that would help you to progress along that path?
Well, I'm a certified youth development practitioner, but I'm very much interested, like Jada, in politics, because I think politics is everywhere and in everything. It definitely influences youth development, and you can definitely see that in what the national budgets for youth development get each year. And so I am very much interested in politics. I chose sociology, and I have to say that my mentors were very happy with it. In fact, they wanted me to do law because they think I have an aptitude for it. I have very little interest in law. However, I do understand, like Wesley explained, that we must understand the systems in which we operate. And so my plan is to minor in law when I head back to the UA campus in Barbados. So I choose things that enable me to understand how people work and that is what sociology is. We understand how people and society works. And I choose law because I have a vested interest as well in criminal justice and how justice systems affect young people from marginalized communities. And so that's how I came to choose the subjects that I have chosen. It's kind of sort of broad, but still very much able to be narrowed down and specific to what my passion is.
Okay. I hear Jada talk about the emphasis on academics in school. I hear Nixon talk about the creativity which is lacking in the curriculum. Now tell me, Nixon, if you had the chance to do a makeover of this school curriculum, what would you do with it?
It's a very interesting one. I think if I had my input into the curriculum, I would allow young people to start pursuing more direct areas, for example, in the creative arts, music. I think also not just information technology as how it's delivered, whether it's in a general proficiency, but specific areas such as graphic designing and these sort of things, introduction to robotics and so forth, where they can begin to tease their way through understanding their creative side and figuring out if that's what's for them. Let's not wait until they get into university or they decided, well, this heavy academia is not for me. I need to do something, in the creative creative side. And they decided to leave school and go to see other areas. I think we should expand the curriculum to accommodate young people who have interest in those areas.
And I asked you that question and you kind of give me the answer that I thought I would get from you. You have mentioned skills, the arts, subjects like those to be included, subject areas that somehow CXC does not seem to have any interest in. And the other area that I do not see a lot of interest in, Jada may want to respond to this, it's civics and those kind of, and local history. Jada, how was that in your school? Did you see a lot of those subjects coming forward in any shape or form?
On the creative side of things, kind of, but not really at the same time. Much emphasis or acknowledgement of these subjects that was never there in because I was strictly theory type person. I've never opened up to, let's say, the creative side of things. I was strictly academics, books constantly. But it's there, but we don't give it much acknowledgement. We don't focus much on it, if you understand what I'm saying. And I do agree with Nixon when it comes to that we need to engage, especially with information technology, because I actually did information technology. I'm being very honest with you. I'm not sure what it is about up to now. I learned certain things, but that was it. So we really need to delve deeper into these subjects and really focus, instead of just focusing on the general subjects like biology, the sciences or so. We need to delve into the creative side of things.
And which of you want to tell me that if you think the curriculum is the way it is because we are really preparing our young people to get jobs and not to be creative and to develop their own? Do you think that's it?
I think I'll take a stab at that one. I think the curriculum focuses very much on molding rather than making young people malleable, in the sense that, okay, I learn a specific set of skills that I am able to apply in whatever it is I want to apply it in. I don't think we're very much focused on that. We're focused on creating a specific type of individual that fits into a specific type of job. And that's not the case for very many of us. Luckily, some of us fit into that. And it's unfortunate that I have to say luckily, because many young people are left on the fray and we are not investing we're not putting the money where our mouth is. If we're saying that, okay, we're doing modern languages, we're doing theater arts in CXC, and then the children have nowhere to go after they take this exam, that is sabotage and unfair. So that's what I think the curriculum is doing.
If I may share very quickly, Beverly, about just a little story about myself. and how I became where I am now in youth development. When I started secondary school and I moved up to Form 3, I was placed in the science class and I was given a whole set of science subjects to do. By Form 4, I started dropping all of them, dropped the science subject, picked up social studies. And then eventually I got an opportunity to do the Grenlec debate. Because as I said to you, I'm Grenadian. So I did the Grenlec debate, and then everybody was like, look, Barry, you're really good at this. And I said, yes. I mean, I'm into politics and I like this type of things. And that birthed where I moved into the youth parliament in Grenada. I went into a national youth parliament. I went into regional youth parliament. And all these activities were put on by the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports. So understanding my interest for this thing and realizing that this is something I really enjoy doing, that is when I moved into the field of youth development, and I've been doing that for the last 10 years. So I'm saying to you that the point that we're making here is that had it not been for that one public speaking experience, I probably would have never realized that I had a knack for this thing and I wanted to do it. So we need to create the opportunities for that type of creativity to come out of the young people, even while they're in schools. And it takes not just the school environment, but the extracurricular activities and other agencies that work within the social and educational sector to do it. Thank you.
Right. We're talking about a rounded kind of education where the emphasis, as Jada points out, is not just in academics. And as Dominique points out as well, some students will fit into the mold, but there are others. What do you do about the others? You have students in school who are labeled as, all types of labels are put on them because they don't fit into the mold, but yet still they are bright and creative young people who just need an outlet and need to find find their passion. And it is Jada again who had mentioned earlier that the curriculum does not allow you to pursue your passion because it is already set. And there is really no room to break into it. So maybe I'm throwing it out as a challenge to the four of you here. You're all interested in politics and youth development. Maybe you could, not maybe you could, you should take on the CXC in a manner that can force some kind of change to the curriculum very, very soon. I see Jamaica has started a coding project in school. And I think that is quite commendable that you take young people at a very early age, expose them to coding, building computer software, and developing that kind of industry even from an early age with those young people. I'm sure that program is going to be very successful because COVID-19, as Nix mentioned, has pushed us into an area for which we were not actually prepared. But we have to catch up and catch up very fast if we want to remain significant in this new virtual era. And this is where we're going to take a break right now on Time to Face the Facts. We'll be right back with these very, very bright and exciting young people. I can't wait to hear more from them, and I'm sure you can't either. So don't go away. We'll be back right after these messages.
I remember when this beach was really wide, a place to picnic and play cricket.
And we used to go up to the end to get away from all the people. Now all the beach gone.
Coastal erosion. When the sea starts to come in and take the land away, everyone loses something.
Granny, look how the waves are washing right under that house.
Coastal erosion. It's a hazard. Hazards. Take control. Reduce your loss. What can you do to help stop coastal erosion? For one, don't drive four-wheel vehicles on seaside dunes. They loosen sand and destroy binding vegetation, causing erosion. Find out more about coastal erosion and other hazards at your local disaster office.
A message from the National Disaster Management Agency and SEDERA.
Stop the spread of germs that can make you and others sick. Cover your nose and mouth with a tissue when you cough or sneeze. If you don't have a tissue, use your elbow. Wash hands often, especially after coughing or sneezing into a tissue.
Men are not made to physically abuse women.
It's something that has become a serious problem in our country, or has been a serious problem in our country. Abuse could present itself in many forms. It could be physical, verbal or emotional, and the most egregious, sexual.
It's not a good look. It's not right in no form. So domestic violence against women should stop. How can you hit a woman, beat a woman?
Every form of abuse has an effect on the individual abuse, on their family members, on children, even the community as a whole.
I'm a man. I came out of a woman. I love my mother. I love my nieces. So to the children, if you're being abused, talk to somebody that you trust and get your message to the person.
This has been a message from the Ministry of Social Development, Housing and Community Empowerment in collaboration with its social partners. If you or anyone you know is in need of help, please feel free to contact us at 440-2269. And remember, a life free from violence is possible.
Welcome back, viewers, to this edition of Time to Face the Facts. I have 4 very exciting young people with me, and they are sharing their experiences with the education system. And they're going to be telling us how they plan to participate in the process to make this different for the other youngsters who will be coming up. So while you all were struggling through school and trying to adapt, like Wesley, Jada, you tried to adapt. Well, you found something that you fell in love with, Wesley. You found law and you realized that you have a passion for it. But it was mentioned earlier that the curriculum doesn't really allow you to find your passion. Nixon says he has a passion for the environment. That came through extracurricular activities, not through anything which was taught to him in school. So looking at this kind of foundation that the education system provides, do you think, and I will ask Wesley this, do you think that the society better prepares you to handle life than school does?
I will have to agree. I shouldn't say that it will prepare you better, right? But it has a significant part to play in preparing you for social life. For me, a lot of what I understand, what I know now, I really cannot acknowledge that with the schools, but with my extracurricular experience as well. For me, one of the greatest eye-opener for me was when I served on the TMR Community College's student government. That gave a lot of that equipped me with what I needed for the social life. I came to understood what to expect in the real world, in the world of work, and how to deal with people. I came to understand that it sometimes it's not always about what you have in your head, what you know on paper, but it's really and truly how you can go about applying that, right? And not just that, but your interpersonal skills with people, right? When it comes to manners and respect, in terms of interaction with them. So yes, the school equipped me with the basic fundamentals, right? But the real world, it really tested that. It really tried to see, okay, let me see how far he's at with this. That's all I have to say on that. We shouldn't do these extracurricular. We shouldn't take it with a grain of salt. But anytime you see those opportunities arise with us, you should take it and go with it.
Absolutely so. Dominique, you have mentioned that you are going to university in Barbados, but you are from Belize. So that means you broke away from home. Now, how important is that foundation which was laid at home? Did you, or I should say, was the foundation laid at home, or did you have to make that way yourself? And how important is it for young people to get away from home, maybe, to get some of those life experiences and stand on their own 2 feet?
Well, I have been very privileged to have been in a space and had mentors that believed in me and pushed me. So I always tell people that I was raised by community and have the privilege of having a great family. And so all of the things of I know Wesley spoke about how you deal with people, your interpersonal skills, all those things are built for me from home. But I have to say that having the opportunity to travel the world really within this youth development space has given me everything I needed to survive in Barbados. The first year of university was quite different. I had to leave home in a pandemic and leave home rather quickly because I found that I had won a scholarship because I'm of Indigenous heritage. I'm an Indigenous person. And so I had won a scholarship and then quickly had to move to Barbados. And so from my message to young people, it's hard to leave home, but our countries are very small. And because of our history, because of the way in which we are governed, in some places better than others, we are sort of landlocked. And as a consequence, our imagination is locked. And so leaving home is always, always, always something that I encourage young people to do. Leave your communities, talk to people who are different, talk to people who have different life experiences, because without that, you cannot experience and you cannot appreciate where you are now and where you want to be in the next 5, 10, 15 years.
Right. Now, we live in our various different societies, but Nixon, when you look at the society as it is, socially, politically, otherwise, how do you see it from your perspective as a youth? And are there things in it that you would wish to change?
I think one of the major challenge in society that I would like to see change is the level of injustice that we face as a people, more so as young people. You have a lot of things happening. I mean, I understand that we live in a changing world and things change, but the hypocrisy of the system, the biasness of the system, sometimes I wish that we can change some of that. And I think Dominic spoke about social justice before. And from a youth development perspective, our young people, a lot of our young people are negatively affected by some of these injustices where we focus all about, in some cases, equality instead of the equity of the system. And we tokenize young people quite a lot. So I think some of these things, we have to try and address them so that our society can be better for us to coexist.
Give me some examples of what you refer to as tokenizing young people.
The youth tokenism, and I'll relax a bit, has been going on for many years, where we see that young people are involved, we see that they are part of the discussion. And I'm a youth development practitioner. I work in the government of St. Lucia as a youth and sports officer. So I can speak, I'm speaking both as a young person and as a practitioner in the system. We often say that young people are a part, but are they really? Because I believe sometimes we shut them out. We give them a little toe, the big toe, in the door, and then we close it off. So over the years, I've seen some changes, and this is one of the things I have championed quite a lot. So we have their voices in the youth policy now. let's not just take this tokenism thing as to say that their voices are being heard. It's more than that, because you've created a youth policy, you've included their voices, you've consulted with them and everything like that. You've consulted with them and everything like that, but you would not fund the programs that the policy requires. Now that's a form of tokenism. And it's the highest form that you would see, because an under-budgeted youth department or an under-budgeted youth program really cannot achieve much, okay? And is where is the money being spent? So we have what I've coined over the years, my colleague Kerry Frank and so forth would have coined the term the super youth, where these smart, so-called smart young people that would have done well academically are the ones that you would find soaring over the place. And then you have the young people who are skilled and talented and want to do something, but they may not be able to speak so eloquent like others. And they are just in a corner, and the most that they would see is a survey after a survey. There's USAID coming to do one and UNICEF coming to do one, and all the voices are in there, and it stops. So tokenism is not just about not putting the voice in, but where does it carry? Where does it go? Is it being actually part of the process? Is it making systematic changes? That's the type of thing that we have to try and
Wow, that is surely an indictment, as far as I'm concerned, on the system that really supposed to be preparing the youth and working with the youth for the next step. Jada, do you think there's just tokenism when it comes to including youth in the social development?
It does exist, I must say. I feel like they do little things to get our input or so for doing it safe, because they know if they don't, they will get penalized or so in that sense, but they never go all the way with us. I'm being very honest with you, and we've seen various examples of it in Grenada. So they will give you a little bly, as we Grenadians call it, and then that's just it. It cuts off at there. So it does exist in society, and I do believe it's something that we need to address, especially as being the future, as they say.
And that is something I really want to hear you young people speak on. The youth are the future. Jada, when I was your age, 17, I heard that the youth were the future. I'm still hearing that. Where is this future that is supposed to belong to the youth? When is it? Dominique?
Well, I think the future is now. I think we cannot wait. We do not have time as post-colonial states. There's a lot of time that has been robbed from us to develop ourselves, to find out what we want, to find out what is our identity. So much time has been taken from us already. And so we do not have the time to sit around and wait as young people. And I'm very proud to be sitting on this panel with young people who have taken the step and who ourselves have been very privileged in our, even if we face challenges, we have been very privileged ourselves. And so we cannot wait. And I always emphasize, Nixon mentioned it, we have to put our money where our mouth is. In Belize, we have a youth department that gets probably $3 million. This doesn't include, hold on, Nixon, don't get excited there, because this doesn't include programmatic work. Programmatic work gets about $300,000, okay? That $3 million goes to our emoluments and salaries. And then you look at things like the prison system, and the police, which has been very abusive, getting these huge budgets that are 10 times larger than the youth budget. What does that tell me as a young person? That tells me that you rather fund me when I am already in trouble than giving me the tools to not get to that place. That is what that tells me. If you're giving a youth budget $3 million and giving a police and jail budget $56 million, what does that say to me? That I am not a priority. These are the things that we must change. And the future is always now. We plant a tree today, and 20 years later, we'll see the fruit. We have to start now.
Right. That is such a sensitive issue that you have touched on, because crime in societies is blamed on the youth. But I have always said, and I've said it in various fora, it is the society that create the youth who commit the crime. So where does the responsibility lie to ensure that young people do not commit crimes? And you have just put it there in a lovely picture, Dominique, that the programs to prevent young people from becoming criminals don't get the funding that it should. Wesley, is this something that you're aware of or that you have seen where funding for youth programs, if you're giving a department $3 million and only 300,000 goes to programs, the rest of it is for salaries and emoluments, then why are you paying salaries and emoluments to people who have nothing to do? How do you see it in Grenada, Wesley? Is there a weakness that you can identify in funding programs for young people? It's young men like yourself who they say are the criminals, you know.
Well, for me, well, I won't be able to confidently speak much on that because I myself, I haven't really been involved with much of those public youth programs. But I do hear some of the cries. And I do believe that sometimes there's wrong focus, not wrong focus, but focus are put into the wrong areas, right? For especially for the youth. Say for example, right, the juvenile center, right? I think this is one of those extreme measures in dealing with youth delinquency, I should say. I believe that a lot of more effort it should really be put into the families because one of the principles that I learned while I did my studies in sociology is that the family is the primary unit of socialization within the society, right? And from what I understand, a lot of problems, especially down here, it relates to broken families, which is a sad reality that we face down here. And I believe that as young people, when we're going through the schools, more emphasis should be put into programs that will really and truly allow us to fully understand the importance of proper family life and properly family structure, right? Because I believe that if you have a proper family life, a proper family background, stable parenthood, and you foster, and as parents, they foster fruitful relationship with their children. When you see certain opportunities come up for them, for youths to indulge in delinquency, they might think twice about it, right? Is this what my parents will be proud of me for doing? Some of the questions that may come into them, their consciousness will start to speak to them. But there's a lot of instances, but as I said, down here, I believe there is a failure in that respect. For family, there should be a lot more help in community-wise and governmental. And that's how I see it right now. A lot more focus. They need to review where they're putting the monies and think about it. Okay, well, where the problem really stems from, and what can we do to fix that?
And it's quite profound, you know, coming from a young person. And Dominique had mentioned the marginalized communities, and we use these fancy names to refer to those who are not rich, not connected to the wealthy, don't have these kind of contacts for people to surround them and protect them and keep them out of jail. Not because they may not have done something wrong, but they have the kind of power and influence around them. We see this kind of double standard with youth from the marginalized community, Dominique, let me use that term, as opposed to those who have families or have that kind of ring fence around them, where they have people to protect them. Now, is there a gap that we need to bridge between these two groups of young people? When you look at statistics coming out of the United States, They'll tell you that white, and we don't want to get into a racial discussion here, but we're just looking at the marginalized versus the other. When you look at these statistics out of the states, they'll tell you that the youth who are white use illicit drugs more than those who are Black, but the Black ones get into jail more. And we look at it. Now, this is a serious problem with our type of marginalization in our communities. How do you as young people see it possible to step forward and do something or call on somebody to kind of bridge this gap or to balance this inequality? Nixon, you want to take a stab at that? Oh, Dominique, you want to go? Go right ahead.
Okay. Currently, so I want to say two things in relation to this. The first one is in relation to how we study societies, right? So in Belize, there is Southside Belize City, which is where I'm from, and then there's Belize City proper, and then there's Belize District. In every social study that has happened, Belize City Southside is always investigated separately because it is so different from everywhere else, because crime affects it differently and socioeconomics affects it differently. So that's one thing. Secondly, there's currently in Parliament this thing called the 11th Amendment, right? Which seeks to have young people, or not young people, let me not say that, citizens on a whole. If you've been to jail for more than 12 months, you, for whatever reason, you can never enter the doors of Parliament. You can never run for politics. That is problematic for me. Because, and here's why it's problematic. It's problematic because I understand that people that come from places like I do not enjoy the luxury of having access to power and access to wealth and a proximity to power that people who have higher wealth have access to. If I get arrested right now, there is no way that I could afford a lawyer. But someone, another colleague who's from a different family, from a different place, with a different last name, can definitely get entanglement with I'm taking that word, an entanglement with the law, and get off scotch-free. That is problematic for me. So these things that we talk about and having young people in these spaces to make sure young people and people from marginalized communities, we have to make sure that we are on top of the ball and have to make sure that we are constantly questioning these things that are being put forward. Because in the longer run, it may not affect us right now, but it will affect somebody we know because we have such small societies now. So we have to be able to use our voices and learn the system and work the system to then break the system that oppresses us.
Thank you very much for that, Dominique. And Nixon, I know you wanted to come in here, but we're going to take a break and come right back to hear how you feel about these inequalities in society and how the young people should approach it from right across the spectrum. Don't go away, viewers. We will be right back.
Coughs and sneezes spread diseases, so cover coughs and sneezes, please. Not with a rag or bandana. They trap germs. When you use the rag again, you put germs on your hands and everything else you touch. When you cough or sneeze, cover your mouth and nose with tissue. Throw the tissue in a bin and wash your hands afterwards. If you don't have a tissue, cough into your sleeve or elbow. Alcohol-based hand sanitizers are also effective in cleaning hands.
Water up to my belly, mattress floating, furniture floating, even the TV set floated for a while, you know?
My sneakers were floating just like boats.
Floods. They can happen so suddenly. What can you do?
Listen, when I saw the portable toilet from the construction site up the road float by, and I realized that all that stuff was in the water.
Floods. Hazards. Take control. Reduce your loss. What can you do to help stop flooding? Keep drains and wells clean and unblocked. Find out lots more about floods and other hazards at your local disaster office.
A message from the National Disaster Management Agency and SEDERA.
No one should live in fear of the person they love, children included.
This is something that is really becoming an issue within our country, and we need to make necessary steps to stop it.
It seems like sexual violence against women and children has become habitual.
Abusers. Mr. Sicko
It ain't macho to get on. So I said no, I said no, I said no, nowhere.
This has been a message from the Ministry of Social Development, Housing and Community Empowerment in collaboration with its social partners. If you or anyone you know is in need of help, please feel free to contact us at 440-2269. And remember, a life free from violence is possible.
Welcome back, viewers, to this edition of Time to Face the Facts. I'm your host, Beverly Sinclair, and we have some young people here who are giving us the facts about how young people see the society and how some of the issues really affect them and how they would like to be addressed. Before we went on our break, we were looking at the inequalities in society and how the law comes down on marginalized districts or people as opposed to those who are connected in various areas and can be protected. Nixon, how do you feel about this, or how do you see this in your society? And what do you think can be done to have this addressed?
It's a sad reality. I tell you this, it's a sad reality of the level of inequalities that we have and the way that the marginalized are treated. Now, what is interesting about this is the majority oftentimes make up that marginalized class. However, the so-called lawmakers make laws that benefit the minority. And I think this is exactly what Dominic was explaining when she spoke about the case where if you spend 12 months in prison, you cannot run for parliament. Does it take away your right to, or your wisdom to negotiate? Does it take away your ability to speak on policy just because you've been behind a prison cell? These are the questions we have to ask ourselves. I think ideally also we have to not run away from, one, our young people also must accept responsibility. We speak a lot about the system, but I believe also that young people have a right and they should also accept responsibility in what they do and how they do it. The question also forces me to become a bit radical, which I try not to make these days too much. But I think we have to take it into our hands sometimes. And whether it's through organizing ourselves and speaking out against these inequalities, that is what we have to do. We have to be our brother's keeper. And I like to introduce a term that I call the diffusive political syndrome, and it happens a lot in the youth development sector, where young people take on this political burden or this party politics burden. Let me be very careful with this one, because we know when we look at politics what it really means, this party politics burden. And they use that to fight down their very own young comrades. So we're contributing to the injustice. So whereas we should be helping each other, whereas we should be understanding that the youth has this new school of thought and it's this whole new science, we're fighting down each other because of political loyalty. So yes, you're appointed a senator. Yes, you're given a job on a board of directors or whatever it is. But what happens then? Are you continuously looking out for young people? Are you serving the interests of your party or your group that you've not you're not supporting the same thing that you fought against.
Wow.
So discussing inequality is one thing, but contributing to it, it's another.
Mm-hmm. Wesley, as an aspiring young lawyer, do you see the marginalized group as a group that you think you would want to jump behind and give some support?
Most definitely. Most definitely. Because the marginalized, right? When you really take it at a national standpoint, they make up a large portion of the population. And you go into politics, right? To really help those, right? Who 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 are being marginalized, who are not getting the let's say the good end of the stick, right? Um, but yet for all, once you get into that position to do something, you choose not to. And I have a problem with that. But what I really do have a problem with is that when there are laws or certain legal frameworks that are put in place to benefit those, to benefit the marginalized, you don't respect it. That is where I have a serious issue because it's already established. It's written in black and white. You need to go, when you're in that position, you need to at least have that respect for the rule of law and acknowledge that this is in place to help people and not to benefit you. Well, the policymakers, I should say. I don't like to get into too political in this, but say for example the pension problem here in Grenada, right? I don't see that there's supposed to be an entire fight right now from the public workers to get their pensions when their pensions is guaranteed and enshrined in the Grenada Constitution. It's there. It's in black and white for everyone to see in that public document, in that contract between state, the nationals, and the government.
Yes, Wesley. Those are some very, very, very keen observations coming from you. Jada, do you see young people contributing to some of these inequalities that they are subject to?
Yes, indeed. Because as we refer to them as being the marginalized, I prefer to say, and what we will call privilege, I would refer to as the selective few. When they do get the opportunity or so, despite them in the beginning looking out for everybody else, when they do get the opportunity, when they get there, it's like they're alone because they're at that position now. And instead of focusing on what they would have fought for before, they're more focused on themselves in that sense.
So let me ask all of you here then, based on what I'm hearing, based on the way this picture looks, how do you as young people striving for this future that I've heard about since I was Jada's age, as I said before, this future, which is supposed to be now, as Dominique says, how do you expect to have a different kind of future when the young people of today are contributing to some of the inefficiencies and inadequacies and inequalities that are preventing young people from attaining and getting to that level where they can be positive contributors to the society rather than just looking out for self? See? Dominique, I see you're really smiling at this one. So what are the thoughts going through your head?
I want to be very careful with my language here. Not because I'm trying to beat around the bush, but because I don't want it to seem that we are switching the responsibility only to young people, no? I think young people, as all of us are born into a society that is innately unequal, and is not, although it is preached very much not based on social justice, right? for me as a young person, and as a young person that has seen time and time again, youth leaders rise and fall and pretend to be Nixon. Your facial reaction. I've seen young leaders rise and fall, and they fall for the same reason almost every time. It's because they begin to put self-interest first, because they begin to put party political interest first, because they begin to forget where they have come from. And they walk into rooms and they forget why they are there, and they forget that thousands of young people are depending on you to represent them well and to amplify their voices. And so as a young person, personally, I look to other young people who are doing great but little things. Because inspiration for me cannot come from only politicians. It cannot only come from the UN. It cannot only come from these organizations. It must come from the people that I say I am serving. Because what the focus has to be for politics, it's a very dirty thing. Party politics is a very dirty thing. And it only becomes beautiful when you are able to give people the opportunity and the environment to empower themselves to then self-actualize. And by default, when people self-actualize, they will contribute to the citizenship, no matter what state they live in. And so that's where our focus must be, to be able to question and analyze and see ourselves as integral parts of creating a better future. It cannot be anywhere else.
They say the young people are going to learn from the older folks. And earlier in this discussion, we described a system of tokenism for the youth. So what you are telling me now seems to be a spin-off from that, where a few young people manage to get into a position where they can make a difference for themselves. And because of the system they have experienced and that they have come up through, they decide that, well, you see me, let me secure myself and don't bother about nobody else, because this kind of system, they would have known that the system is not really set up to help young people on a wide scale. So they are just securing what they can for themselves and ensuring that they are comfortable. Do you think that this is what is happening, Nixon? Why we just not seeing the kind of change that should happen from generation to generation?
I think it varies. Tars really have this song, the system set. It's set to keep us fighting. It's set to keep us in that circle. But I think importantly, yes, we have young people who learn from what they see and what they've experienced, and then they move up the ladder and they display the same sort of behavior. I think there are two things to take away from this discussion about marginalization and moving up. One, youth have a responsibility. Youth have a responsibility. Two, the system and the people that we've entrusted to lead and people that we've entrusted to govern also have a responsibility. And when we all begin to play our roles, then we would see the growth that we want to see. There are some young people who've gone outside of the realm, outside of the box that was designed for them. And they would have achieved certain things and they would have climbed certain ladders and come back and help others. So I think it's important to think outside the box. And sometimes you get a lot of critique when you challenge the system and you challenge the way things are going. It's not right. I'm a radical. I was born to challenge the system. And I will continue to do so. And as an advocate, I empower young people to do the same. As a practitioner, I empower young people to challenge me. Challenge things that you don't believe in, challenge things that you see are not making a difference in society. So I think we have to challenge those inequalities and challenge, because the powers that be, the people that sit in our governments and so forth, sometimes they just don't make this thing up by themselves. They don't have any evidence to justify this program.
but they have a policy. You have a government policy. What is informing the government policy? Shouldn't it be some sort of evidence from your research? You have not done the research, but you implementing programs. How is that going to help?
Yeah.
You understand? And you challenge that and you become an enemy. So I say, continue to challenge it.
Right. Well, history will tell us that that is the only way you're going to get things to be done differently, you know. You have to challenge, you have to do something to make a difference, or things will continue the way that they are. And for our youth, if there is to be any hope for a different kind of future for our youth, we have already looked at the fact that there has to be some adjustments to the system of education. There has to be inclusion of creative talents and entrepreneurship and a different kind of thinking in the education system. We have looked at the whole system of funding for youth programs, and that would be within the structured governmental system where we have to fund the programs. Don't just talk about them. Don't just let it seem like you're doing something. The tokenism, you have to get past that and come with something concrete and realistic for young people. So we have looked at all of these issues. So now I want to challenge you. If any of you see being in the parliament as something that you would want to do so that you can effect some of these changes, the kind of system that we currently have, if you're not in the parliament, you can't effect any kind of legal change. Is that somewhere that you would see yourself going? Jada?
Most definitely. Like, I'm very much sure that I've always decided, like, I've always believed that change can only start, well, it starts with you, but you're not the only person contributing to that change. So if I, as an individual, I don't know if anybody knows this, but I aspire to be prime minister one day of my country, because I do believe we need young, creative minds, if that makes sense. I mean, I know by that time we may be older, but still, we need youth that actually care about not just themselves, but about the state or the nation on a whole. And I see myself being a part of parliament. I would be able to implement that sort of change, and not just for myself, but for the others surrounding me. Countless times we've sat in our classes, especially before CXE, discussing what changes we want to see and how we are going to go about doing that. And I've realized that the youth in Grenada have a lot of ideas. They observe things. People believe that we don't see things, but we observe things and we analyze it too. But they're too afraid to stand up and actually do something about it or say something about it. And if I have to take the first step to do so and bring others along with me, I would be more than ready and more than happy. And if it starts in Parliament, then I'm willing to go there.
Very, very good. Wesley, do you see yourself heading to the Parliament to try and address some of these deficiencies that you see in youth development?
I too do aspire to also be a parliamentarian. For me, I want to be in a position, right? The best position, really, I'll be able to help people, especially the youth, in and empowering youth and effecting certain changes in the different areas where I strongly believe that needs some keen attention to, especially the legal framework in which this country operates, because I am of the opinion that a lot of the current framework that we have is outdated and is not equipping the youth, the next generation, really to take over in an effective and efficient manner. So for me, be it as a member of parliament or even as prime minister, I don't know. Jada, I do hope you and I will be on the same page to effect such changes. But but I do see myself wanting to go there to get that platform to help people to make to not just speak empty words, but to effect proper and empowering changes.
Yes, and I want to ask both Dominique and Nixon about this prospect of parliament, but I want to add something to it. And I'll throw the question out and get your responses when we come back from this next break that we have to take right here on Time to Face the Facts. Don't go away, viewers. We're going to be right back.
Water up to my belly. Mattress floating, furniture floating, even the TV set floated for a while. You know?
My sneakers were floating just like boats.
Floods. They can happen so suddenly. What can you do?
Listen, when I saw the portable toilet from the construction site of the road float by, and I realized that all that stuff was in the water.
Floods. Hazards. Take control. Reduce your loss. What can you do to help stop flooding? Keep drains and wells clean and unblocked. Find out lots more about floods and other hazards at your local disaster office.
A message from the National Disaster Management Agency and SEDERA.
Feel good facts.
Help prevent cold and flu by washing your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. That's the time it takes to remove most germs. No soap and water? No worries when you've got alcohol-based hand sanitizer.
Welcome back, viewers, to this edition of Time to Face the Facts. We have some young people here that I think we should just turn over the governance of our various countries to them right now. Don't even wait, because I am sure they have some solutions to some of the problems that we are currently having. But I'm your host, Beverly Sinclair, and I have with me Dominique, I have Nixon, I have Jada, and Wesley. And we're going to continue our discussions with them about the society from the perspective of the youth. Before we went on the break, Jada and Wesley had declared that they definitely have prospects of getting into the parliament so that they could make some and effect some of these changes that would be necessary in the society. But Dominique, if you get into the parliament, or if that is one of your aspirations to get into the parliament, just like there is a shortage of funding now for various programs, don't you think there'll still be a shortage of funding and you wouldn't be able to do some of the things that you want to do?
That is definitely a heavy question, because I'm sure many of the politicians today had to contemplate that. There has to be a lot of things change, including our mindset toward what is important, what we prioritize on a local level and what we prioritize as a global community. For me, I think the governments fund what they want to fund. That's just the fact of it. We fund what we want to fund. And so if there is a priority to then fund youth development and fund this entire social system where we wrap our citizenry in this space of social protection, then it has to be the space. For me, of course, politics is definitely in the cards for me. It's one of my aspirations. Like Jada and Wesley, we sound so whimsical saying it, but I do want to be Prime Minister myself. If not, then just Parliament works for me. What I do in any space I work, I definitely want to make sure that I continue to do the work I do. And I spend an immense amount of time working on self, because I think very many politicians don't know where they stand. And so when things come at them, they very easily flake because they don't know who they are and what they stand for, and they don't know what to say no to. And so as a young person, I spend an immense amount of time reflecting on and working on self and working on consciousness raising, to when that opportunity becomes mine, It's not only mine, it's for all the people that I have said that I have served and that I want to continue to serve in the future.
Now, Nixon, do you think that there is enough money in a country to take care of more of the projects and programs that would make sense then for young people?
Yes, I want to answer that and also to contribute on the previous questions. Is there enough money? There isn't enough money. However, I believe much emphasis has to be placed on what we spend on and how we spend. As I mentioned before, we need to have evidence-based programming in our youth development and educational sector. It must be driven by data. I tell people that youth development is not about volunteering in a group. It's not about going and cooking by the road and having barbecues and doing activities and cleaning up rivers. That's part of it. It's the activities part, but it's a science. And it's a science because it's a social science that needs attention. And if we are going to deliver to young people and expect the results, we must be data-driven. So we have to get evidence-based programming and put the monies there. So it's all about how we allocate. Seek funding, allocate. Now, I also want to contribute on the previous question about getting into parliament. I was once promising a promising possible parliamentarian. I'm not sure if that still exists. In fact, I was being pushed by other people run for office, do this, take party membership. But the last person that told me that, I told them that my time has not yet come. Importantly, Beverly, I think the party politics system makes it very difficult for us to make real, true change. And let's look at Grenada as a case study. You want to get into office to make a change in Grenada, a country for the last 3 elections or so, 2 or 3, have been governed by a one-party state.
The last two.
Last 2, right? So that would be 2013 and somewhere around 2018 thereabout.
Right.
So a one-party state, you want to get in there to make true change. You have, I sat on the Constitutional Review Committee a couple of years ago in Grenada when we were doing the process. Norman Gilbert was the rep, and he couldn't go to some of the meetings as he was also director of youth. And so he'd asked me to sit in some of these meetings. So I was there part of the process, trying to push the whole thing, giving the youth perspective. And then I saw this interview by a certain gentleman that said, when he was asked the question about whether or not we should have a term limit for prime minister, prominent gentleman in law and politics and in the House said that Grenada does not have enough educated or people with the leadership qualities to run a country, and therefore we should not put a term limit to should not put a term limit for prime minister. And I said to myself, if this is the reality that we are facing, because these are senior people in the political system, these are the people that you as a young person is expecting to face, to have entrance, to get entrance into the party system with the hope of getting into parliament. We finished. We are finished. And therefore, it calls upon us to be a part of the people's parliament. And I think my role as a technocrat in this process, to build young advocates and to build young people that we can have mental and social change, because we place so much faith in this narrow process that we are trying to penetrate with people with that type of mentality. And if you don't believe in the party ideology, you don't get through. So we have to make the change we want to see on the ground. So we need that social revolution where we can demand from these people, and in some case, take it to the ballot box. I mean, in St. Lucia, we recently had an election and we had 2 independent candidates making it to the House, although they've received cabinet portfolios, but they ran independently and they were able to make it to the House. So once there's room for independency and independent thinkers, then you can see the growth. But as in the case where you have to try and penetrate this narrow party system, I think we need to focus a lot on building our young advocates so that they can bring about this type of political change, which in turn benefits our young people.
I did have it in mind, you went to the question before I did, but that's all right to ask Jada and Wesley about this party politics kind of system that we have, and how do they see themselves navigating through this to get into the parliament.
Maybe we can still hear from them. I would really like to hear.
Yes, I'd love to hear from them. Jada, how do you see yourself navigating through this party politics kind of thing to get into the parliament?
I've never really see it as an issue when it comes to me. I've always believed that change starts with us. And before I can even get up there, I need to have people. First of all, let me say that I've always focused on the mentality of the Grenadian people in that sense, since we're focusing on Grenada. The change needs to start there, the way we think, the way we go about. And I do agree with Nixon, because I've preached that to my friends every day. We need a social revolution. I feel like this is the only way that we would get the change that we really do need. So once we start off and we change the mentality, that it would not be easy, I'm being very honest, and we change the mentality of the people, we build the foundation from there, because once that happens, I believe there's nothing that could stop us, because we have that under control. So when we do build the foundation, people will begin to understand that politics, everybody defines politics as being bad. Everybody that I've told previously that I've wanted to get into politics, they see it as being bad. But I always say to myself, politics is not bad, because it's men that makes up politics, and it's the men in politics that makes it bad, that allows us to define it as being bad. So once you change the mentality of these people, when you get into that position, you have, let's say, the foundation or the platform, and you're able to push forward despite of. Grenada only have two parties. I'm being very honest with you, Grenadian citizens see it as only being two parties. And this is something that I've been against since day one. We have so many other parties, but everybody focuses on these two particular parties, which is not good. And it hinders our development in all aspects. I feel like this is what's keeping us back from development and from change, because everybody is either you support this one or you don't support this one. If you support this one and I support this one, then we can't correlate, we can't cooperate, we can't coexist as we say it. So that needs to be an issue that needs to address, but it starts with changing the mentality of the people here in Grenada. Wesley, you can take it away now.
Thank you.
Let me just say that it's the men and women in politics, and not just the men.
I'm sorry. When I say men, I speak in general, human beings.
So what I have to say is, first of all, Nixon, with what you said previously when you elaborated on those points, a lot of those resonated with me, because I myself, I picked up on those issues. For me, when I talk to my friends and my other colleagues about, aspirations, they always ask me, so what are you going to do? Are you going to join a party, create a party before you get into it? And I said, my answer was always, I am not interested in joining any political party. All right. What I am interested in is being there and serving the people who elected me, and as the best of our representative that I can. And I must once you're there, you have to represent. So you have to act based on the will of the people, right? Not always for, because you're not a trustee. You're not a trustee in the parliament. You're a representative. You're answerable to them. Those are the people that put you there. And I know and I understand that Grenadians, we have gone under a number of years of conditioning to believe in this two-party system. First of all, the Constitution makes no mention of parties. None. Right? So we have to get out of this little bubble that we are in, that it is either this party or another party. No, there are other alternatives. There are independents that run. There are party candidates that run. As a matter of fact, the whole two-party system, it got my attention so much that I remember doing my social studies SBA on that. I wanted to know if people really vote on the candidates and what they offer to bring to the table, or if they vote for the party, right? And I have to say, based on the little research that I did, I found out that this really was party politics. Party politics has come to invade the minds and the conscience of all of us here. And with that, there will always be everything will be politicized. It's either what you go with what the ruling party says or what the opposition party says, and it really shouldn't be like that, right? The parliament's supposed to be a forum, right, for everybody, careless of what background, careless of what affiliation you have. You come together and you discuss matters that matter to the public, that will improve public life and improve standard, right? And that you are you're not accountable to party officials, right? But you're accountable to those persons who mark that X on that ballot to return you to the parliament to represent their best interests. And in order for us to really move in that enlightening future, a lot of deconditioning has to be done. And I can see it is going to be an uphill battle from once you start. Because I remember this when we had those strikes at CAMCC. I remember talking to one of my colleagues. I told them, look, the teachers or the lecturers are going to protest. And we as students, we really should do something about this, right? Because once the lecturers go out and protest, we don't know how long they're going to protest for. But at the end of the day, our education is going to be hampered with, right? So, our right to that will be hampered with. We have done our part. We have paid for a service for guidance in the little fields that we chose to do, right? And we should do something about it. And to my shock, about the response, Wesley, that nothing to do with me, right? I coming up just now. And it's you that really want to get into politics, so that not affecting me. So to my shock, I'm like, no, this has nothing to do with me and my aspiration. I'm taking it as this. Teachers are leaving the classroom, right? Teachers are leaving the classroom. If they leave the classroom, that means a significant part of our school experience or college experience is going to be hindered. And we can't have that. Because at the end of the day, it's our future that's being interfered with. How are we going to be equipped if our mentors or lecturers are not present? We don't have all answers and we need guidance in certain areas, especially this time of our lives, right? And even when one of the greatest things that actually stood out to me when as a student government, we decided we're going to at least make the powers that be know that we as students, we are watching and we are observing. And what we would like is this to be resolved in a friendly, professional manner and as soon as possible to return the status quo of the college, right? We don't want to hinder in any more student life here, right? Which we did. I remember the students, one of the things that we did, we had asked the students to come out in their black shirts. Because in times they have multicolored uniforms, right? We had asked the students to come out in their black shirts just to send a message, right? That we are not pleased as to the current processing of or the current status of the college. The second move that we did was to initiate to march around the campus. Unfortunately to me, out of a college of 1,000 plus students, we only were able to mobilize about 20 students that actually went out to march, let their voices be heard. Let their voices be heard that we are not pleased with the current processing of it. while the others, even though they're in the black shirts, given that more passive support to actually go out there and to let their voices be heard. They chose not to. I remember, we recorded, and there's a lot of snickers and giggles from all the others, but it's just I take it as where we put a lot of our focus and priorities at. So it will come with a lot of deconditioning, right? We have to let people know that listen, what is going on now, right? We deserve better, and we should not be afraid of stating that we deserve better. And I think we can move from there once we understand the current situation we're in, equip ourselves with the relevant knowledge, as Nixon said when you're doing your studies, right? Equip yourself with the relevant knowledge to take it forward. And that was one of the reasons why I joined with you, Miss Sinclair.
Yes.
And you, Jada, in our caucus.
Yes, absolutely. We are members of the Independent Caucus for Constitution Reform in Grenada, where we focus on getting others to look at the Constitution, understand what's in it, and also what needs to be reformed. But Dominique, Nixon mentioned the two independent candidates in St. Lucia that resoundingly, I would say, won their seats in the last election. Do you think there will be a rise in independence across the region in the coming years as the party system kind of takes a different kind of shape? Do you see that happening?
As I listen to these three, I think, and I smile and said, we all live in the same country, really, because we have the same experiences. We have the same two-party system, the same governments that remain in government for 3-4 terms. And so from a Belize perspective, and politics right now is very, very much entertaining, to say the least, right now in Belize. Right now, and I don't see independent candidates and even what we call third parties rising to the fore, simply because when you talk about party politics and when you talk about politics on a whole, and I keep bringing up money, but it's true, you don't get into parliament without money. You don't get into parliament without financial backing. And very many times that financial backing comes from very unscrupulous places and people who pretend to be investors but are rather parasites on these societies that we live in. And so for any third party right now to rise, it has to come out of that social revolution that Jada speaks about. It has to come out of this school of independent thought. And school of independent thought is very much frowned upon, because what you do, you threaten the status quo, you threaten the conformists, and you threaten their comfortability. One of the things that a media colleague of mine says is that your job as a media person is to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. And that's what I think our job has to be. As political aspirants, as citizens on a whole, I focus very much on making sure that people remain curious and that the people remain dialectically educated. Because without being able to question even your own biases as a person, you won't be able to question any system in which you exist. And so independent parties right now, for me, just from the reality that we face right now, don't stand a chance unless they conform to what is now in place. Or unless it comes out of a social revolution that not only comes on one, but comes on a collective of people who aren't afraid to think for themselves.
Thank you for that, Dominique. And we're going to take our final break right here on this edition of Time to Face the Facts. Folks, we'll be right back after these messages.
Men are not made to physically abuse women.
It's something that has become a serious problem in our country, or has been a serious problem in our country. Abuse could present itself in many forms. It could be physical, verbal or emotional, and the most egregious, sexual.
It's not a good look. It's not right in no form. So domestic violence against women should stop. How can you hit a woman, beat a woman?
Every form of abuse has an effect on the individual abuse, on their family members, on children, even the community as a whole.
I'm a man. I came out of a woman. I love my mother. I love my nieces. So to the children, if you're being abused, talk to somebody that you trust and get your message to the person.
This has been a message from the Ministry of Social Development, Housing and Community Empowerment in collaboration with its social partners. If you or anyone you know is in need of help, please feel free to contact us at 440-2269. And remember, a life free from violence is possible.
Prepare for hurricane. Make sure you have your radio and your batteries too. Waterproof flashlight candles will do. Tin stuff, garbage bag, first aid kit. Come on people, make sure you have it. Clean water in a container and a hurricane plan. Hear me no man.
Hurricane damage is beyond your control. Surviving the aftermath is up to you. Have a hurricane plan. It can save your life and your family too.
Prepare for hurricane. Your hair, prepare for hurricane.
Feel good facts.
Help prevent cold and flu by washing your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. That's the time it takes to remove most germs. No soap and water? No worries when you've got alcohol-based hand sanitizer.
Welcome back, viewers, to this edition of Time to Face the Facts. I'm your host, Beverly Sinclair, and we are going to get some final views and thoughts from our young panel on their hopes and aspirations and the kind of turnaround they want to see in their countries. Dominique said it before we went on the last break. It's like we all live in the same country because the situations are similar, the problems are similar, and the solutions, I am sure, will be similar. So I want to start with Wesley this time. Wesley, we have touched on so many things and still have not even scratched the surface of what impacts the youth and how the youth see the society and things that have to happen for young people to take control of the future now and today. What do you think that you can do at this point in time to begin to effect the kind of change that will be necessary so that 5 years, 10 years down the road, you could be in the parliament and try to make some of those necessary changes?
Well, for me, I always believe that before change, you must have education, and you must be aware and be mindful as to what's going on. Have an in-depth understanding of, not really in-depth, but just have a general understanding of what's going on. And you go out there, you go outside, you relate with people, you talk with people, you get their views, you understand, you elaborate where you notice that well, this person you don't fully understand, and you tell them. You said no. If they think okay, it's supposed to be like this because this has how it's been all the time. You said no, it's not supposed to be like this, right? It's supposed to be like this based on the current systems and framework and protections that we have as citizens, right? So for me, I believe that the first step in effecting change, right, is to educate, relate, and communicate to everyone to those in your constituents and in the nation for them to understand. And then once you have that, once you establish that first step, right, you take it from there.
Dominique, what can you do at this particular juncture to start to effect some of those changes that are necessary for I keep referring to that phrase, and it's not a real phrase, but for the young people to take the rightful place in the society?
I too, like Nixon, I consider myself to be a radical. I have gotten in quite a bit of trouble over my time as a young person in this leadership space that is one that is very public for my opinion. And so, my informed opinion, let me add that. And so, I think for me, my place remains as the person who perpetually questions and questions with the right basis and remains curious. And I can only hope that at least one young person sees that and says, okay, well, what is my place? And if they only question what is my place as a young person within the space that we live, then I think I've done a good job. Because if young people can begin to question the realities in which we live and question what a future can look like, then I think that is where it starts. That is that spark that gets us going and has us find the passion that Nixon has found, that Jada has found, that Wesley has found, and that I have found. If you can be the little spark, I think that's where it starts.
Thanks very much, Jada. You are a very, very busy young lady. I have seen you address diverse audiences. I've seen you in debates. I've seen you getting that message out there that there has to be something different. How are you going to really start getting your feet onto that road to take you to where you want to go to become Prime Minister of Grenada one day? You have said it, you know it's not going to be easy. How and where do you think you can start?
Most definitely, as this discussion is surrounding youth, I would start with the youth, my fellow youth, because I've stated before the various discussions I've had with my friends or so. I understand that they know what's happening and they're willing to take a stand, but they need someone to be that guide. And I don't think we have, or I shouldn't say we have, but the adults that are willing, there are selective few, there are the selective few, but they're willing to push us to actually take that stand. So if I could kind of be that inspiration to them and get them to tag along and we come together, that would be the first step for me, allowing the youth to realize that, okay, we actually have a voice. And when we speak, they ought to listen despite of what they make us feel like. So that would be my first step in getting to Parliament, I would say.
So are you referring to something like another type of youth organization? Because we do have a few of those, but it sounds like you're speaking to getting youths together under an umbrella where you can begin to share with them some of these issues.
It has crossed my mind. I think it broke up there. I'm not sure if you had finished the question, sorry.
Well, I'm not sure if you heard all of it, so let me say it again. It sounds to me like you're referring to putting together a youth organization, but we do have a few of those around already. So what kind of organization would you be looking to bring together, or what kind of youth, I should say, would you be looking to bring together under this umbrella to begin the kind of work that is necessary to change the face of certain systems and beliefs, that social revolution that you are passionate about?
The organization aspect has crossed my mind multiple times. I haven't gone into depth to actually analyzing, seeing how I would go about doing it. But yes, indeed, it's an idea. And the organizations that exist, I don't think it's publicized enough in gathering the youths all over, because I myself sometimes are not aware of these organizations that exist. I'm interested, but they're not making themselves known in the sense that they can get to reach us. So whatever I decide or so, the organization would have to be very much publicized and reach the youths from all over, not just a specific area or so. Yes, it would have to start small and then expand over time, but to reach youth that actually have the passion there, but they just need that, as Dominique was saying, that little spark to actually give them the little push to voice their concerns or so. So that would be the main focus of that.
Nixon, is there need for getting youths together in this kind of way? Because you're part of an organization, and I mentioned it before, we do have a number of youth organizations, many of them with different focus. Do you think we need to have the type of organization where we can teach young people social issues that can begin to change their minds and their thinking about the way things have been done?
Certainly. And as you mentioned, I'm part of the Caribbean Youth Environment Network. And when I'm wearing that hat, I'm getting young people together to organize and speak out against some of the injustices in the environmental system. We're asking for better management of our waste and energy efficiency and that sort of thing. So that's when I wear that hat. But of course, in terms of the civics and getting young people involved, we need organization. I'm not sure if you should have been around during the time of the Grenada Revolution, and you saw what the organization of young people and coming together would have delivered. And I think we don't need the violence, but we certainly need a social change. And to get that, we as young people need to organize ourselves, young people of similar vision, similar passion, to bring about change. Because I think for too long, what we've experienced is not working for us, but we just remain content. And right now, I think that just as how the future is now, I think that content is not enough. And if we're going to move from being just content to getting what we deserve as young people and bringing about societal change, we certainly have to organize, whether it's through the club structure, the youth organizations and the sport organizations. We definitely have to move and begin to organize ourselves for the social revolution, which is on the horizon, I hope.
Would it be necessary or important for young persons like those here who are advocating for, making better policies through the parliament? Do you think they should start putting themselves forward from now in some kind of way, not necessarily maybe to be on the ballot for the next election coming up the road, but just to start sowing that seed somewhere in the mind of people?
Certainly 100%. You have to become relevant. And I believe what I have seen in St. Lucia happen over the last election, people are willing. There are people who are independent thinkers that are willing to vote or believe in a person and believe in that person's vision than just the party. And I've seen it happen, and I believe we need to become relevant. So young Jada needs to be on the airways. She needs to be sharing her vision. Young Wesley needs to be doing the same. I mean, I have somewhat been silenced because, I'm in the public services these days. I have to behave as a good boy. But I certainly believe that you have to become relevant. I see Grenada have this what do you call it, Youth for Change happening with young people going around and sharing their vision and speaking out against injustices. People need to get to know who you are. They need to understand how you think, and then they need to believe in you. And it takes a lot. It takes a lot to move away from voting the NNP or the NDC for the last 30 years to want to believe in a young person with a vision. So you need to be out there, you need to be relevant, you need to live your life not just for yourself, but for the people that you seek to represent, because that is what would make them believe in you or not.
Thank you very much, Nixon. Thank you, Dominique. Thank you, Jada. Thank you, Wesley. It is young people like you that give me hope that there will be societal changes that will make better countries going forward. You are inspirational and you give hope. So thank you for taking the time to participate in this edition of Time to Face the Facts. I look forward to engaging with you again and certainly seeing and hearing a lot more about you and from you, you meaning collective you, all of you that are here and your peers. Thank you, viewers, for being with us for this edition of the program. And we look forward to you joining us again next time another edition of this program is aired. Until then, so long.